What's going on, everybody? What's going on? It is Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and we are back with another midday stream. It seems like it's been a while since I did a midday stream. I don't think I did one since last week, but we are back for another midday stream here on the Torian Rain Reloaded channel. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell twice to be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. I would greatly appreciate it. Shout out to everybody over there on Patreon. Shout out to everybody, all the members over here, everybody on Instagram, X, Discord, all the people that send me stories. I greatly appreciate it. So we are here today, and we're going to be talking about Byron Donalds and them comments that he made. Was it last week or maybe the week before? Like I said yesterday, I couldn't do this particular stream when I wanted it to because, the time that I could have did it, I couldn't because the rally was on Saturday and then I didn't go live on Sunday. So there's that. But we are here today to discuss those comments. By now, I'm assuming that all of you have pretty much heard about what he said, but I'm only going to go over one particular video in particular, and that is the one that he did with Abby Phillip over there at CNN. But before we go into that, let me go ahead and acknowledge the people who are here so far in the chat. We got T.S., Denise Scales, Anita Harrell, Craig, Jerry Bedford, Hacksign KT, Doc Spencer, Wallow J, DC Precise, Mr. Ishmael, Andre, J Cage, RDRD, Yanni 2436, AW1. Oh, I had to read that. It says "come on, bro," but you spelled it out. I had to look at that. What does that say? I was about to say something completely different, but shout out to you, Donna C, JJ Mars, Tawana, Buzzer Cam, Kid Gravity, Landry, Malcolm, and JJJ. Also, we got Lakeisha, I saw Denise, D and Didi, Michael McCullough. Shout out to you. All right, so basically, Byron Donalds made this comment where he was mentioning about how Black people or Black families were more intact under Jim Crow. And already there's a flaw just in his comment because of the family he has. But we'll get into that. But before I go ahead and get this video started, I got to throw up the disclaimer. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and bring the video up. Now, this interview that he did with her is about 18 minutes, so it's not that long.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York, and I want to get right to it tonight. One of Donald Trump's vice presidential contenders, Congressman Byron Donalds, he made some comments that has a lot of you talking and a lot of Democrats fired up. I'm going to speak with him live in just a couple of minutes, but here are the original remarks. They were made as a part of a pitch to Black voters in Philadelphia, and I want you to hear it in its full context. Listen.
I grew up with my mom. My dad and my mom, things didn't work out. As an adult, I look at my father and I say, bro, I don't know what happened, but you my father and I love you.
Wow.
I don't know what happened. I wasn't there.
Wow.
But I'm gonna tell you this, growing up, the one thing I knew I wanted to do, and this is not about my father, this is about what I wanted to do, is I wanted to be a father to myself.
Wow.
And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of Black families with younger Black men and Black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a Black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative minded, but more Black people voted conservatively.
So my thing is this: why would he reach back to a time period that was a very tumultuous time for Black families, even when they were together? It's like, Byron Donalds, did you read a history book, or did you get taught proper foundational Black American history and what Black people had to go through during Jim Crow? Now, for those of y'all who are unaware, Byron Donalds, to my knowledge, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is a first generation born. His parents are not from here. At least his mother isn't. I just want y'all to be aware of that. I think his mother is Jamaican. See, I'm glad Kid Gravity is here because he can definitely confirm that for me. So I don't know when his mother got here, but if she got here after Jim Crow, you really have no leg to stand on when it comes to this discussion. because Byron Donalds was born in the early 80s. He's not that much older than me. He was born in the 80s. So I don't know exactly when his mother got here. So the fact that he even mentioned Jim Crow, a period that even his own mother could not understand that or didn't live through, says a lot. And yes, and I know he's from Brooklyn. So he's first generation born. So he's technically what you would say an anchor baby. Oh, you say he's 45? Okay, he's 45. Teacher said, who told him to say that? Oh, you know he got a script to say that. Because that's something we've heard before from the usual suspects, that they want to go back to a Jim Crow era. And we know why they want to go back to that. My thing is, Byron, why would you want to go back to that? Do people realize that Byron Donalds is married to a white woman and has mixed or biracial, however you want to call it, children? Byron, you couldn't thrive under that just on that part alone. So you would want to hope that you wouldn't want to go back to that. And it's funny, he says, because the black family was together. Byron, you don't have a black family. That's very, so right there, he already tripped himself up just on that alone. But I'll let him continue.
And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries, it's Wesley's contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job.
He mentioned generational wealth. Now, we all know that generational wealth with, if they cut the check and we get our tangibles, then we can start talking about some generational wealth. But Byron Donalds is over on that side where they are anti-reparations. And honestly, let me just throw this out there because I don't want anybody to come over here and say, oh, why are you only going after them? Because the Democrats are too. Look, damn it, I know they are too, but we're talking about Byron because he's the one that made the comment. Byron is on the side that is anti-reparations. And I'm sure he's probably said some things against reparations before, especially if he's over there. I'm sure he said it, and I'm sure he agrees with it. If y'all remember when I was talking about that movie, that book, The Grift, they said that in order to really be in line with those people over there, you have to almost shed your identity to be in lockstep with them. Why do you think people over there keep talking about, why do you always got to bring up race all the time? And then you got people like him. You got that Terrence K. Williams. I know that was nauseating in and of itself. You got Candace Owens, Fakem. Now, I don't know what the issue is with Terrence K. Williams, but 3 of those people that I mentioned all have PC spouses. And all of them are anti-black. 2 of them are tethers. And all 3 of them think they know what's best and can speak for and be in front of what black people's real issues are, or be the shield for the best. And there's so many more out there. But let's continue.
Generational wealth.
Now, we should note that many Democrats who jumped on Donalds today claimed that he said that blacks were, quote, better off. As you heard there, he didn't use those exact words in the clip, but the congressman joins me now to talk about that. Congressman, thank you for being here. I want to just focus on really the substance of what you were saying or trying to say in that clip.
And by the way, y'all, I used this interview instead of the Joy Reid one because I looked at the Joy Reid one and all Joy was really doing was like, for her, it was like a roast session. So it wasn't like something worth like reacting to, quote unquote, at least with this one right here. Just with what Abby Phillip just said, she had to correct what people like Joy Reid was saying when it pertained to the context of this. And the thing is, you don't want to do that, especially with a situation as delicate as this, because then that's how you can end up losing the debate.
What did you mean by Black families were more together during Jim Crow?
Frankly, what that is about the empirical fact that before the Great Society, before Lyndon Johnson's policies, there was more Black families united. The marriage rate in Black America was significantly higher before the Great Society. The period of time that coincides with that, obviously, is Jim Crow era. And then after the Great Society, the marriage rate in the Black community plummeted significantly.
The thing of the matter is, I always talk about the two wings attached to the same buzzard theory. This is exactly why I did my Black Massacre series. If y'all remember when I did that, it was talking about the both sides of that political spectrum and the roles that each played, especially when it came to Black Americans in this establishment. And you saw how policies in the political party shifted over time. The thing about it is, Byron Donalds, is that he's coming from a very biased standpoint where he cannot talk about it from how both parties at that time period both played a hand in Jim Crow. And Black Americans was right in the middle of it because we were the direct targets. Because both parties had a hand in it. It wasn't just one over the other. Could have been when one party could have been worse than the other. True. But the other party didn't quite try to do anything to stop it either. Now, Byron's not going to mention that.
Society is a part of that reason, not completely, but it's definitely a part of that. And what you're seeing right now in America is a reformation of Black families in America. That's a good thing, not only for the Black community and for Black families, but it's also a good thing for the country.
So
also when he wanted to say, because he said it in his I guess that little symposium, I don't know what that was supposed to be. He mentioned conservatism. He said back then Black people were more conservative, mindset wise and voting wise. So he threw the politics part in there as well. This is nothing more than a political ploy to get more Black people to be more conservative. But if you look on X, why would Black people want to be a part of any of those parties? They're both anti-reparations. They're both anti-Black hate crime bill, and they're both ending a qualified immunity. Which is the three things I keep telling y'all is what we as Black Americans, Foundation of Black Americans, definitely are in dire need of. And both sides are anti all three of those things and then some.
what was the point of tying together the Black family and Jim Crow specifically? I mean, Jim Crow, as you know, was a period of racial segregation, of racial terror. Why would you make that connection?
All I was doing was referring to the time periods when you talk about the historical timelines in America and coinciding with Black families and what the marriage rate in Black families are. The overarching point is obviously talking about what polling shows today, that about 25% of the Black vote, depending on what poll you're looking at, is leaning towards supporting Republicans and supporting President Trump. The corollary to that is that when you're in a family unit, husband and wife, living together, working together, thriving together, you're raising your kids, your thought process is now talking about building generational wealth. What am I leaving to my children?
But Byron, you are against reparations. It's like Mr. Ishmael just said. He said he shot down a reparations policy last year. See, he's a part of that pull yourself up by your bootstrap. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. They all want us to be like them. I don't know if y'all seen it, but people like Byron Donalds and the people I've mentioned, and then some I can't even think of off the top of my head right now, all move very android-like, very robotic. It's like they don't have an identity, and that's scary. But that's fine because they will get reminded of who they are come November the 5th.
What kind of communities do I want my children to come up in? What are the educational opportunities? What's going on with the economy? How does, and then to a broader level, how does foreign policy and all these other public policy issues flow into that? And so when you compare the terrible agenda of Joe Biden and what that's done to families in America, coinciding with the fact that you are seeing a reformation of Black families in America today, which is an absolutely wonderful thing and needs to continue, my view.
Let me pause it right quick. Mr. Ishmael, I just posted the link to the Discord in the chat. I'm assuming that's the link you were looking for to join the Discord. It's right there. I just dropped it.
Is it also coincides with a more conservative leaning and a more conservative mindset politically in those families.
One of the
See, like I told you, this is a political ploy. That's really all it is. But he reached back into a time period that was very, very I guess you can say very harmful in a way you can say towards Black people as a whole. Even if you had your Black family intact, it was still a very tumultuous time period for Black people. And the fact that you use that as an example that was the trigger. That was the trigger right there. This guy could have used any other example besides that, but he chose to use that one. And I think deep down, he probably knew it was going to trigger some people, but he didn't know it was going to happen on this scale because, man, people came at his neck about that. Because there are people that are still alive to this day who were around during Jim Crow. Some people probably around his age if they're blessed to still be living. We just talked about two of them the other day with Black Wall Street. They're 109, almost 110. Of course they lived through Jim Crow. They were born in the thick of it. And lived through Jim Crow until Jim Crow came to an end. Now, I would like to know what Byron Donalds got to say about that. I'm very curious what he has to say about that decision in Tulsa, though.
I really want to just get you to address is there were a lot of people who heard what you had to say, and a lot of them are offended by the.
And by the way, those people in Black Wall Street had families too. And what happened? They got bombed into oblivion. A lot of Black families are intact during Jim Crow, and guess what? A lot of their homes got firebombed. Man, woman, child, all in the home. Some didn't make it. Some got snatched out of their homes. Now your family unit is broken.
Idea that you would repeat Jim Crow 3 times in your comments as if to suggest that that was a time period because that Black families were, in your words, together, because, in your words, Black people were not just more conservative, they voted more conservatively. That's a good thing. I mean, it sounds like nostalgia. Do you regret using that time frame as a reference?
Nobody ever made nostalgia. That was never the point. It wasn't even about that. So where now I'm going to get my backup is I didn't say that. I didn't even insinuate that. That is where the media and yes, Hakeem Jeffries and a lot of other people are taking
what
it.
exactly didn't you insinuate?
No, back up.
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. What didn't you insinuate?
The premise of your question, I did not insinuate. That is what people are trying to weave into what I said. What I said is crystal clear. It's on my social media. Go to @Byron Donalds on X. You can.
We didn't need this. We didn't need the plug. Just say what you said.
See the full clip. Abby, I appreciate you playing the full clip. What you are dealing with right now is a political environment where now anything I might say or any major surrogate might say is going to be twisted into the lens of race. That was never the point, not the idea
I just want to, just to clarify my questioning of you. Sure. I mean, I understand that this idea that you said it was better, you didn't use the words better. But when you talk about that time period, you're suggesting that because the Black family was together, they were better off than they are now.
See, this is the problem, Abby.
So are you saying that that's not the case? That the Black family was not better off when they were, in your words, together?
Abby, let me put it to you like this.
In the Jim Crow era.
Yeah, J. Cage, that's her.
Let's agree on something. I am, obviously one of the better communicators in the Republican Party.
Now here comes the part where he's about the grandstand and he's about to big himself up and give himself a pat on the back in a very elitist tone, much like what I've been telling y'all about when it comes to Candace Owens, when they feel like they're the smartest person in the room. You can't tell them shit. I can't stand people like that. Those people irk me.
I know how to put words together. I do it very, very often. So I'm not going to say something that I do not agree with. What America is seeing right now, especially Black America, is the gaslighting that unfortunately does happen in politics, where you take my comments and you want to weave your own political viewpoint into what I said. What I said is very clear.
I asked you to explain because I wanted to. What I want to undo is understand what you're saying here. Because if you're making a comparison, you're saying the Black family was together then, they're not together now, and you're using that to try to say that things are bad now. Well, first of all, let me just to set the table here. By pretty much every event.
And of course, when he said that, let's be real here, when Byron Donalds made that comment, he was not telling that to Black people. He might have been in a room with Black people, but he was telling that to white people. You know why I say that? Because that's a time period that they want to go back to. Those who are of today who didn't experience Jim Crow, they are upset because they didn't. They probably heard the stories and wish to go back to that. When they say make America great again, what time period do you think they're talking about? I remember when 45 was first running for president. And they were asking Trump supporters, who was going around saying make America great again, like it was going out of style. It was this one reporter had asked this white woman, "Excuse me, ma'am, I noticed that you're saying make America great again." And she was like, "Yes, I am." And he came back and asked her, he says, "Well, can you explain to me, what does make America great again mean?" That woman probably had crickets going off in her brain. Like, she was all vocal, yelling out make America great again, but when she was asked what does that mean, and he asked her, what does that mean to you? Not just what does it mean as if it's a solid definition. He asked her, what does it mean to you? And she couldn't even give him an answer. That's because we know what time period you're talking about. You just didn't want to say it while you was on camera, but I'm almost certain that you probably said it behind closed doors when there were no cameras around, when there was no reporters around to ask you that question. And if you don't believe me, just go look on X now and just look at some of the stuff that people be saying when it comes to FBA every single day. Yesterday was a benchmark for you to actually see how they really felt about us, up there calling Juneteenth ratchet. Oh, you don't deserve reparations. Oh, none of our families were slaves. Oh, just put, the usual talking points that they always put out there.
Available measure. Black families, Black individuals in this country are better off today than they were during Jim Crow. Would you agree with that?
Abby, of course I would. I'm not making that point, and this is the problem. What the Democrats, what Hakeem Jeffries did on the House floor, what Jamie Harrison.
Okay, before I go any further, since Byron Donalds want to sit up here and play dumb, does anybody want me to go back and so we can hear exactly what he said? We're 8 minutes and 16 seconds in. Do y'all want me to go back so I can replay exactly what he said? And then I'll bring it right back forward to where we stopped off at. Because now he's going to try to sit up here and try to twist the words around of what we clearly heard him say. Okay, I'll go back. Let me see, where is it at? Where did it start at?
My father, this is about what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to be a father to myself. Wow. And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of Black families with younger Black men and Black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a Black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, During Jim Crow, the black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then H.E.W., Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries, it's Wesley's contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth.
Okay. So we went back and we listened to it again. Again, he made sure to throw the politics part into there when he says black people weren't just conservative because black people thought conservatively, but they voted conservatively. That was another takeaway right there for me when he said that. He's basically saying if more black people are together as a unit, as a family, then that means they'll go and vote conservatively because conservatives are all about the nuclear family. Well, what about that Lily Gaddis chick? She's a so-called conservative, and she's a single mother to a mixed Iranian child. And she tried to grift off of saying the N-word and got fired for it. You got Rob Smith, Bousse, who claims he's not conservative anymore, but he misses that conservative leaning stuff. So he's gonna waddle himself right back on over there. And he's in the academy, and he's married to a white man. Keep telling yourself that, Byron. And at the end of the day, you still brought up Jim Crow.
What the president of the NAACP, what the Biden campaign.
Oh, Wallow, don't get me started on Lauren Hobart.
Because they're the ones who started this. It was really the Biden campaigns who were trying to cherry pick everything. They're trying to twist my words into saying something. I never said that. What I was talking about was specifically black families. And the point that black families being together is a great thing for the black community. And you do have to acknowledge the empirical fact that before Lyndon Johnson's policies and the welfare state that was created in the United States, I'm not talking about good, bad, or indifferent.
But what about
So basically what you're saying, Byron, is that you want to have Jim Crow back because that's when black families, in your words, were together. If they just didn't get rid of Jim Crow, black families would be together, albeit still going through some shit, but at least we'd be together. Like, we literally can pick apart what this man is saying without him actually having to say it. And again, like I told you, he wouldn't thrive if they was to bring Jim Crow back today. He would not thrive under the same rules and laws of Jim Crow of our grandparents and even our great grandparents. He wouldn't thrive because, again, he's married to a white woman. At the end of the day, Byron still brought up and mentioned Jim Crow. Exactly, Tawan. He said black immigrants weren't even allowed, so you wouldn't even be here because your mother is Jamaican.
Black families were, black marriage rates were significantly higher.
Well, what about
They're
other
rising
things that
again
might
in
have,
America.
but,
That's a good
but
thing.
What
We should
about other
celebrate
things that may have contributed?
Then you could have just said that without bringing up Jim Crow. You could have just said, "Oh, black." You could have just said, "Oh, black marriage rates or the black family as a unit is rising and is looking, normal again." If that's what you wanted to say, you should have said that without bringing up Jim Crow as a benchmark for your example or your talking point. That's the issue that people had with what you're saying.
To the, maybe the decline in marriage rates, which, by the way, is not unique to black families. That's happening actually across racial groups. But what about other things? I mean, what about redlining? Do you think that had an effect on the Black family? What about mass incarceration? What about the war on drugs, which was pushed by a Republican president whose advisor said it was specifically to target Black people? What about all of those things?
Which was really a war on Black people, and she's talking about Tricky Dick Nixon. That was actually talked about in my Black Massacre series, by the way.
Look, if you want to talk about redlining and a lot of the other policies that were put forward, quite frankly, by the Democrat Party, if you're going to go back to Jim Crow, because Jim Crow was Democrat policies,
Well,
that's what that was.
Oh my goodness. What did I tell y'all about the people that are very biased to that party, that they're going to either believe everything the party says about the other party, or they're going to just become a complete shill of it? That's why I'm independent, because I can call it the shit out on both sides. I told y'all earlier, Jim Crow was in the hands of both sides. It wasn't just the Democrats that did it, or it wasn't just the Republicans that did it. Both of them basically played hopscotch and double dutch with Jim Crow. And Black people were the target.
I know that you know this.
Don't cut me off when I'm trying to make a point.
Let me just, I have to correct a factual point here. I know that you know that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party of today are ideologically not what they were during Jim Crow. You know that, Congressman. So to suggest that, you know, the Democrats of 1920 are the same ideologically as the Democrats of today is inaccurate. So just, you can continue.
And all you got to do is look, like I told y'all, just read that book, The Grift. As a matter of fact, in that book, there's a whole section in there about Byron Donalds. I think it's in, I want to say chapter 7 or 8. So if y'all look in chapter 7 or 8 of the Grift, there's a whole section in there about Byron Donalds. As a matter of fact, the title of the chapter has his name in it. And you can get a rundown of Byron Donalds' history, even, yes, his criminal history too. Like, that man was a convicted felon back in the day. Fast forward to now, and this is what he's doing now.
But that's not totally true, Abby. And I think if we want to have that conversation about the policy positions between Republicans and Democrats, we can have that conversation. But
one of the other
Abby,
things,
do you want to have a conversation?
One of the other things,
I'm trying to understand how you want this
brought it
to
up,
go.
because since you brought it up on the conservative thing, the other thing that you said was Black people voted more conservatively. Were you talking about them voting for Republicans?
In part, yeah, because that's just an empirical fact. That's what we know. That did happen. And the only corollary that I am making is that when families are together and now you're trying to find a way for you to build wealth within your family unit, you're thinking about public policy in a myriad of ways. Because at the end of the day, you want your children to be able to stand on your shoulders. I was very, very fortunate. My mother was able to build a platform for me to be able to stand on and to be able to achieve. Same for my sisters. I'm a very blessed individual because of that. My only point is that when you have a family unit, husband and wife living together, striving together, grinding together, raising children together, you start thinking about public policy.
It's funny he benches up the nuclear family, but he wasn't even raised in a nuclear family. Remember what he said in the beginning of this video, of this stream, when he was talking about, when he brought up Jim Crow. He mentioned about, yeah, you know, they were there, but his dad wasn't even in the home raising him. He was raised by a single mother, and so was his siblings. So you just contradicted yourself again.
In a myriad of ways. And my belief is that dynamic allows people to start thinking about public policy in a much more conservative way as opposed to a much more progressive way. That's my point.
That might be, I mean, I think you're a Republican, so you're entitled to that opinion. But I think what people are taking issue with is you made a couple of statements of fact. And one of the things I was asking you about whether you were talking about Black people voting for Republicans. You know, in the time period that you're talking about, the LBJ time period, they started voting for Democrats. And the reason is because of civil rights, because a Democratic president was passing bills that gave them rights. The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1965, the Housing Fairness Act. So do you acknowledge that when Democrats black voters vote for Democrats, it's actually because there's a history there. There's a reason that they voted for Democrats in that time period, not because they were just getting welfare money.
Abby, let me be clear. I don't deny that. I think it's also important for the record to be clear that you had the vast majority of Democrats in the Senate were filibustering the 64 Civil Rights Act led by Robert Byrd, who, by the way, was a mentor to Joe Biden when he went into the United States Senate. So if we're going to talk about the history, let's talk about it clearly and completely. Republicans have been the ones who were pushing not just the 64 Civil Rights Act, but the other 4 Civil Rights Acts that occurred before 1964.
Look,
that's the history of the country.
I'm
not denying
there
that.
Were Southern Democrats
Abby,
who
can
opposed,
I finish my point? All
again,
I'm asking is to finish my point.
On the
Abby.
facts here, there were Southern Democrats who opposed these civil rights bills, but
yes,
a majority
correct.
of them voted for it. It was also led by a Democratic president. So you acknowledge that. Southern Democrats were recruited into the Republican Party in the time period after that. So when you talk about this, you just have to acknowledge that there's been a switch happening in the two parties. It's not the same today as it was during Jim Crow.
And like I said, going back to that book, there was a pivot. There was a pivot. How the Republicans of today were how the Democrats were then, and vice versa. How the Democrats were then is how the Republicans are now. All they did around this time was just flip-flop. They just tilted into a different direction. That's why I keep telling y'all, same bird. They might have changed the wing side, but they never switched that bird that they was attached to.
And so when you say that black people voted conservatively, that actually doesn't really tell us anything. It just tells us that they voted for the Republican Party, which is a different thing than it is for today.
Are we also going?
And even with all that so-called voting, what did that get black people back then? Not a damn thing. Just like it seems to be today, not a damn thing. So what has changed?
Going to acknowledge that how the 64 Civil Rights Act actually got through the U.S. Senate was because of also the leadership of Senator Everett Dirksen, who was the minority Republican leader in the United States Senate at that time.
Absolutely.
You have to acknowledge that. So I think if we're going to talk about this, we have to acknowledge all of the history that went along with it.
I wasn't suggesting
and I think that's a good thing. We should have that historical conversation.
I wasn't suggesting that congressional Republicans necessarily were the stumbling block for any of this legislation. All I'm saying is that when you ask, why do black people vote for Democrats, you have to acknowledge that is one of the main reasons. I want to just ask one other thing, though, Congressman. It's striking to me that this conversation about the family, about who is the recipient of government benefits, about who was affected by Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society, why is it that conversation only happens to black people when white people are on welfare?
On more welfare, too. I've heard people who work down at them offices, and they say you should see the amount of white people that come through there every month to get their food stamps. Then you got Brett Favre out there in Mississippi being the welfare king he is, and also too they commit some of the highest, if not the most, welfare fraud. But hey, remember who called us called black women welfare queens? That's during Reagan.
When white people are recipients of these programs too, when white people have broken families as well, why is?
And by the way, that system, that the welfare government assistance, that was created for them. That wasn't intended to be for us. That was for them.
This is a message that is always directed at black Americans.
I didn't say that at all. I think that's what
She didn't say that you said that. She's bringing up the fact that whenever something like this is brought up, it's only directed towards black people. If you would just shut the hell up and listen. She didn't say that you said it. She just said it just seems that every time something, this talking point comes up, it's always directed at black people. And it's never spread around to other groups, although it should be. When they bring up welfare, who they always talk about? Black people. When they bring up crime, who they always targeted at? Black people. They still got them on there talking about 13% this, 50% that. When they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, they're not talking about any other group, even though there's lazy bums in other groups. Who are they talking about? Black people. That was his guilt kicking in, because she didn't say you specifically said it. She said that it's been said. She didn't say, Byron Donalds, why do you keep saying it? She says, it's been said.
Insinuating, but let me.
I mean, that's what you did. You were trying to recruit black voters for President Trump.
Am I allowed to answer the question? Let me step into that. Okay, a couple of things. Yes, Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, if you look at the empirical data, was destructive in part, and I said even in my comments yesterday in Philadelphia, in part to black families throughout the United States of America. You also had some of the very damaging policies around the criminal justice system. The 94 crime bill, which was authored by Joe Biden and brought by Joe Biden. Yes, you had the war on drugs that was also very damaging to black communities. All those things have contributed to that. And where we are today in America is trying to have the economic policies and the public policies so that all people can thrive. And if you're actually going to compare economic policies and public policies between the 45th president and the 46th president, it's without question they were better under the 45th.
Well, look, I mean,
so if you're going to examine today.
Okay, so now he's saying that black people were better under 45. And this is a talking point that I've heard so many people say. Let me just tell you something right now. Just because you got that $1,200 stimulus check don't mean you was better. But guess what? We ain't better under Biden either. In my opinion, we weren't really better under either one of them. And I think what really, and I said this before, and if y'all didn't hear me say this, I'm gonna say it now. If what happened in 2020 did not happen, and I'm talking about with the pandemic, 45 would have probably got reelected. But with how he mishandled that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. That was a true test for him as a president to see how he would handle that situation, and he handled that horribly. So, if y'all didn't hear me say it before, y'all just heard me say it. If what happened in 2020 did not happen, I strongly believe that he would have got reelected. And now he's not making himself look any better, and going back to what me myself just said by saying black people can relate to him because of his mugshot and those ugly shoes, and him having rappers who are under multiple indictments come out and speak at the South Bronx. That's not helping him, and him speaking to those idiots over at that Black Conservative Federation thing back in February. You're using literally the same tactics that the Democrats use. We only got about 2 more minutes, y'all.
The black
but Abby, if you're going to examine today in America and where we're going as Americans, then you have to have the right set of economic policies and the right set of public policies. I mean, Abby, you've been interrupting me the entire interview. I'm just trying to have a conversation.
I'm going to interrupt you on the facts, Congressman. The black unemployment rate was the lowest in American history under Joe Biden just last year. The poverty rate for black people is the lowest under Joe Biden. So you cannot say empirically for black people that from a financial level, things were better under Trump. There are other ways that you can make this case, but you cannot say that.
Actually, let me respond to that, because the economic reality is that even though unemployment might be lower, wages adjusted for inflation, which is the true.
So she just told him that, and then he agreed with her, and then came back with a but. He might as well. KG, I don't know how you do it. I don't know if you're still in the chat or not, but I don't know how you do it. It sounded like he wanted to say per capita. Because you know they love per capita. Exactly, August Dream. That's why I said that's the part that kind of is like, oh, okay, here we go. Here comes the shilling for the other side. That's why this is why I told y'all I'm a registered independent. We weren't doing well under any. Let me continue. We almost done.
Measure of getting ahead
Fair
in
enough.
America. That has been bad under Joe Biden. It was significantly better under Donald Trump because we did not have massive inflation and people were making more money, which means you're taking more money home, which means you can be.
The thing that's really messing Joe Biden up is these illegal immigrants. It's some other things, but that one is a huge stain right there. That's why I said this is going to be a very interesting election. And I forgot who it was who said it, but they said that they believe this election is going to be very close. They don't believe it's going to be a landslide between Trump and Biden. And you know what? Based on what I've been seeing, I gotta agree. I think this is going to be a nail biter. I think it's going to be one of the ones where they're not going to be able to determine who the clear-cut winner is on November the 5th. It's going to be one of the ones. It's going to almost mimic 2000 with Bush and Gore, where we don't know right then and there who was going to be. It's like, okay, let's do a recount, and then we'll find out maybe like the following week. Maybe past the 7th, Chris. I don't know, but that all depends on how close it is.
Begin to prepare for your family, which means you can start to prepare and begin thinking about ideas of getting assets, accumulating assets, and generating wealth. Joe Biden's economy, Bidenomics, like he likes to call it, I know they don't using the word anymore, that's been destructive of so many families in our country, including Black families in our country. That is the empirical economic fact that we have to acknowledge before this election
inflation,
cycle.
I 100% agree with you, is a problem for all families, including maybe even especially Black families. But you also cannot ignore that there are a lot of statistics that suggest that Black Americans are doing well under Joe Biden, better than they were doing under Donald Trump. I want to ask you one last thing, because I know that this is actually happening as we're talking. We've learned that you are on the list, obviously, for VP.
And this is what it all boils down to, y'all, with what she's about to ask him about the VP thing. This is what it all boils down to. Byron Donalds trying to get a job or another job.
Candidates, and that you've received some vetting materials from the Trump campaign to be potentially a VP. Can you confirm that? And is there anything more you can tell us about how that process is going?
Well, I'm not going to confirm that right now. I had a conversation with the Trump campaign about that, and I'm going to leave that very private because they're going to go through their deliberations. President Trump's going to make a decision. I will say prices in America have been up over 20% since Joe Biden has taken office. That's hurting everybody. When prices are up 20%, trust me, Abby, going to the supermarket, going to the gas station, everybody is struggling. That is a fact. And that is why so many Americans, especially Americans who are minorities in this country, are leaving Joe Biden and the Democrats and looking towards Donald Trump and the Republicans.
All right. Congressman Byron Donalds, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So there's that. There is that. So y'all already know what I'm about to do. I am about to drop that link. There it is right there, y'all. I know y'all got something to say. Oh, but before I get into that, let me go ahead and acknowledge the super chats that came in. Shout out to Jay Cage for the 10. He says, we are not surprised. These folks always have the raccoon starter pack. And shout out to David Joseph. He says, these Trumpican fools think I want my nieces and cousins going back to the quote unquote nuclear family time when blacks and women didn't have rights? Nope. Appreciate you.
It's busy up here. I got money.
Appreciate you. All right, we got Wallow J. What's going on?
What's up, brother Torian? Can you hear me pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, cause I'm at work right now. I'm gonna make this brief. Byron Donalds, you know good damn well they're not let you in that damn VP. You got a record, and when that record get exposed and what you done, oh, buddy, them white folks gonna look at you real sour. They be like, oh, so you did this, and he probably a snitch too. Cause if he in I don't know what he's done, but he may have been a snitch. He just looked like a snitch to me. He looked like a big ass damn snitch. But yeah, that's KG. That's KG's big brother. Let me stop playing with KG. But nah, his wake up call is gonna come real soon. It's gonna be beautiful because he know good as damn well he is not about to be no VP. Him, not no Tim Scott, not no Rama Noodle. You want to sit here and talk about a time where that devastated people? Like that was devastating to the people, and you want to sit up there and act like, oh, that's something good? Like, no, you don't bring up stuff like that.
Yeah, he trying to see. He said, "Well, we know it was bad, but you know what? Let's look at the bright side of things."
There's no bright side of that. Like, yeah, you can
anybody who was from around during that time can tell you that wasn't a good process for them living. Even if they were together as a unit, as a family, it was still a very, like I said before, a very tumultuous time for them.
Yeah, like my grandmama raised my own mama and her kids through that time. She even said that, like, yeah, like it was tough. She was like, we were together, but we still was economically terrible at that time. It was like, what was it? At that time, was it 6 times more that the white family had more than the black family? If I'm not mistaken, it was something in that line.
Yeah.
So you sitting up here acting like, oh, we was just as much as rich as white folks. Like, no, dude, don't bring up stuff like that. Because you notice they don't bring up other stuff with other groups. They always do it to us. And they love throwing it in on our faces. But guess what? All they shit is going to hit the fan. All you other groups, not the individuals, but you groups, y'all going to get yours. And all we're going to do is sit there and be like, we feel nothing. I'll see you later, Torian. Be1.
Be1. And yes, to the people in the chat, yes, Byron Donalds did say President Trump. And what you'll find about a lot of these Trump supporters, they call him that. They call him Trump. They call him President Trump because they still believe in their minds that the last election was stolen. They're still hanging on to that. So yeah, the people over there in Mongaville and those who wish that they can be in Mongaville like Byron Donalds still refer to him as President Trump. David said they need to shut the F up about generational wealth because he isn't help getting it. Exactly. Like I said, he's against reparations. All of them are, for the most part. I don't think I've come across one person over there that is for it. But all I'm gonna say is this: the couch is looking mighty nice this coming election. Nice and comfy. You don't have to get up and go nowhere to leave. I know where I'll be watching the results at this year, from that couch. And I'm sure many of you are going to be doing the same exact thing. John said, what did Byron Donalds do to get in trouble with the law? Oh, he was arrested on drug charges back in the 90s. Like back when he was like in his teens. But then he got a second chance, I guess you can say. And look at what he did with his second chance. JK said said I might buy a new couch. What you gonna do? You gonna go to IKEA and get yourself a new couch? Mr. Ishmael said he reminds me of that Daniel Cameron Attorney General. Oh God. That's another one right there. Now, remember, he lost his election when he ran for governor, and he lost bad too. He lost by a landslide, and then popped up like a couple months later, and he's the CEO of some kind of organization that looks like I truly believe it's Dub S ran, and they made him the CEO. They made him the figurehead, and I ain't heard about him since that happened. I think that was back in January. But I knew he was going to lose. He did not stand the chance. This man did everything wrong in his campaign to the point where even the people that was running his campaign was telling him he was fucking up. I think he had went to go do, or he was planning to do some radio interview with a staunch white supremacist, and his own team, which I'm sure was filled with nothing but white people, were telling him don't do it. But anyway, y'all, I don't think anybody else is coming up. But shout out to Wallow J for coming through. And also shout out to the 3 people who sent me the super chats. I'm about to get up on out of here. We will be back on here tomorrow with the premiere at 11. And tomorrow's stream is actually going to be a little bit later than the 6 p.m. because it's actually going to be an interview. I'm going to be interviewing the author of the recent book that I was telling you about, the pro-black blurred book that I was telling you about like a week or two ago. I will be interviewing the author live on my channel tomorrow. That's going to be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure y'all are here for that, because that is a discussion y'all are not going to want to miss. I've actually had this person on my channel a couple of times before, so some of y'all may be familiar with him. But we're going to be talking about his book and some other stuff as well. So be sure to be back for that. With that being said, y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe and be one.